Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I got here, how I started solving problems for business. Before we get into the juicy details, let's start with I went to school for 23 years. That is, I went to primary school, graduated high school, got an undergrad degree in engineering and mathematics, and then I finished with a PhD from Stanford in applied physics, and I didn't know what was next. So in 2013, I took a class on building innovative brands put on by the Stanford Design School plus the business school. It was taught by two professors, Jennifer Aker and Chris Flink. And in that school, a critical question came up. What is my brand? One assignment was to send out this questionnaire to our 5 closest friends, ask them to describe you in 5 words. I still have the top 6 words from my actual friends. I collated the list together. So those words were determined, diligent, committed, confident, honest, and sense of humor. From that class and the encouraging words from my friends, I thought about what I wanted to do, and that was to solve problems in the real world. In fact, I wrote down in my notebook, April 20th, 2013, my ideal job. Starting salary, $150K. Job description, problem solver. Summary, start somewhere that will train me to apply my scientific logic and technical skill to solving general real-world problems. So in April 2013, 2 years before I graduated and finished grad school, I realized that I wanted to solve real-world problems. So although I had this epiphany, I had been in school for so long, I actually didn't know what job to get that would allow me to solve problems and get paid, So after speaking with a mentor and then some friends I actually met at the B school, pretty important, they all suggested that I started working for consulting firms. They said it was the best way to see a lot of companies quickly and learn what businesses do and how to solve problems in business. So first, I became a scientific consultant working on devices and processes for some of the largest tech companies in Silicon Valley. I worked on a dozen or so projects dealing with utility equipment, consumer devices, code forensics, that's pretty cool, behavioral testing. There was so much. And then I went on to work as a management consultant for one of the top 3 strategy consulting firms. Now, these firms are top tier and considered some of the most prestigious management consulting firms to work for. They're known for hiring some of the smartest people. And in fact, I joined as an advanced degree candidate, along with a cohort, a fairly large cohort of doctors, lawyers, economists. All of us had already gotten an advanced degree, past undergrad, grad school professional degree, and then we came to work for this firm. I felt like this was it. I'm at one of the top firms working on high-level client projects for Fortune 500 companies, working side by side with senior directors, giving presentations to the VPs, C-suite executives, solving large-scale business problems from the top. I couldn't believe the access, the knowledge, the internal training, everything was top tier. And then I joined a case. One of the most coveted cases at the time. That's when things started to go not so great. I have a particular working style. I prefer to absorb a problem, think about it from different angles, and then allow the elegant solution to find me. Now this had worked for my life, school, things like that. And so this is my process. Unfortunately, my thought process on one particular analytic problem was frankly taking too long. Too long in strategy consulting speak is anything that takes you longer than 10 minutes to solve and put on a slide. If 10 minutes sounds astoundingly fast to anyone, it is. But I can say that it's doable with even a larger team of designers, analysts, writers, researchers, all behind you. That's what they gave us. You can take any problem, dissect it, and leverage your team to solve the system using a sum of parts approach. And to be honest, I learned how to do this better as a manager of my own teams later in life. But at the time, I still wanted to work through some of the problem myself. I just knew I could solve it. In one instance, I took my laptop with me just outside the room, still in eyesight, of my team to sit in silence, just work out the mathematical solution, which I did in fact work out before analyst team did, but my manager was disappointed that I didn't just move on to something else, take the problem, get unstuck, leave it alone, let them do it. This and some other things led me to leaving that case. And when I returned to the home office for review with my advisor, she mentioned something very interesting. She was like, Crystal, you are a non-linear thinker. And I was like, first, what is that? Second, how did you figure that out? I don't know that. She pointed out that I was smart and I thought in a pattern that was hard to use on a consulting team given the sheer speed and that it all needs to assemble in a way like blocks. She also mentioned how she only knew one senior leader at the company that was a nonlinear thinker, implying it was very unlikely that I would fit in there. I was shocked, a little hurt, but also intrigued. What was a nonlinear thinker? The more I thought about it, I started to agree. In college, instead of brute forcing my way through a math proof, I wait. Have a pencil and paper in my bag at all times, even a napkin would do. And then the solution would come to me. Even though I was stuck on the problem before, it would just happen on a bench, at the park, on the bus. It would just come and I write it down. And I knew that I took thoughts, I mulled them over, I talked it out with friends, I would make a claim, I would revisit it, I would work it through a few cycles. And there were more and more examples of me being this non-linear thinker to the point where I agreed. And I knew this wasn't the place for me. After leaving consulting firm with an odd sensation of, that was one of my best learning experience of my life, albeit painful. I'm a nonlinear thinker, and how was I going to solve real world problems if I'm not a consultant? So that's when I actually landed a job as a senior data scientist, where I took everything I learned from consulting, experimental physics, and even my love of finding elegant solutions with my nonlinear thought process, and I turned out one of the most beautiful solutions to marketing attribution, which we can talk about at a different time. This model had been left and abandoned by a previous consulting firm, not my previous one, but some other consulting firm, where the company paid $1 million, an actual $1 million, for that solution, and it didn't work. Beyond that, there was no one left at the actual company that understood it. So I took on the challenge. So we needed to manage the marketing spin on a multitude of channels, and I asked for a small budget, like $8,000, to hire some previous consulting firm partners just to partner with me to work through it. I was the only data scientist here. I needed some partners. And in a matter of weeks, we revamped a model that made the company $820K in its first several months of use. Beyond just solving that large problem of marketing attribution for the entire company, when I first joined this company, they were using an on-premise data solution and a very outdated business intelligence reporting tool that was not going to be sufficient for doing any type of real-time data analytics, any type of pulling your own SQL queries. So that's when I took some of the tips and tricks from management consulting. I built a deck, I made a proposal, I sold it to my boss, I sold it to the CTO. I had this lovely thing of let's do a cloud platform upgrade or analytics platform and not code on our laptops. So I know what you're thinking. I'm one person. How did you do that? One, I had the backing and support of the entire C-suite, my entire line of management, and I was the only data scientist there, and they hired me to do exactly this. And at the end of my tenure, I had not only given them a business that they have models to run on for marketing and strategy, I also rebuilt the way they did data science and analytics. And that wasn't the only place that I revamped. I also transformed a whole product operations team at a very large tech company, which you have definitely heard of, right? And I've done that there, and there's a whole story, and I will tell you one day very soon. And now I'm actually working with small businesses to bring them top tier strategy, operations, and analytics to their business. I'm also building a course, which you will walk with me as I build this course, to teach others like yourself to do the exact same. All this was done by one, the grace of God. I can't even claim all this, okay? I can't claim this. Two, leaning into these separate skills I learned. First principles scientific thinking, business strategy frameworks, operations and analytic best practices, all combined with my non-linear thought process to solve problems for the real world and to share my gifts with others. I am Crystal Bray, and I look forward to continuing this conversation with you. And I will see you all